FX Nation, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. And guys, in this week's video, we're going to talk about some analysis for this week and potentially for the rest of the month. You know, December, when it comes to November, December, January, markets kind of tend to slow down a little bit. So you don't see a lot of crazy volatile or anything like that. Obviously, this year's a little bit different. You have the election, you have the pandemic, you have vaccine news. So you got a lot of different stuff coming out that normally would not come out. So this year, of course, 2020 has been different, and it's going to continue to do so until the very end. So let's take a look at some of the charts and give you guys some ideas as to what I'm thinking about on some of the pairs that I've been watching, and let's break these charts down for you. All right, so without further ado guys, let's get this started. All right, so the first thing we're going to look at is going to be euro pound. So as you can see here from my count, we have, this is let's go up to a 1 hour chart. You can kind of see a bigger breakdown of that. Let's cut this stuff out. So you can see here we have peak formation low, 3 levels of rise, high. You actually had a reset here. And so from this reset, we can, you know, basically start counting. Essentially this right here would be level 2. And then obviously we would have another peak here. Okay, now the question becomes, this will be like level 1 here. So for at level 1, we're obviously looking for sells. So in this particular market right now, I would be more of a seller than a buyer. Now, if we take a look from this reset here all the way up to the high is about 246 pips. If I'm not mistaken, this particular pair on average, you know, is about 69 pips or so of the average daily range of this pair. So with that being said, we're at 250. This is obviously well over 3 times the ADR. Okay, so we're already past, 3x ADR on this pair. So we're already past that already. So this is where this comes in here, where this obviously being the peak formation. Okay, so what do we do after this, essentially, to try and give us an advantage in the market? So essentially what I like to look for is, once we've established a peak formation high like we have here, based on the average daily movement of price, so typically 3 times the ADR in one direction, kind of hopefully gives us a directional change, essentially. So we're looking essentially now for sells. So here we are on the 1 hour chart. You can see we just had a crossover the 13 and 50. Typically that's a good indication of a level 1 type of consolidation. So essentially we're looking for sells, or I would be looking for sells. So if we go back down to the 15-minute time frame now, and we take a look at this and we start to add in, let's say, the day breaks, what we're looking for is, you know, obviously it's still super early. We're not even into tomorrow yet. But just assuming that this basically continues to work its way sideways, and you're going to end up getting, you know, let's say the day break somewhere here, and so this continues to move sideways, I can only assume that the EMAs, potentially this 50 here, this 200, are going to stay right where they are. And so price is basically going to be right here, right above it. So what I would be looking for is essentially, you know, either a type 2 trade or type 1. I mean, it's kind of hard to say right at this moment because it's not anywhere near, the Asian range or the end of the Asian range. The EMAs are going to be still basically right here, and price is going to be above both of them. I'm expecting or wanting for price action to break through all this. And that'll obviously help us because right now this level 1 is, obviously in a range right now. The problem that we have with levels, and that you're always going to have with levels, is that you don't know how long those levels are going to be held for. So this level 1 here that we're in could be held for 2 or 3 days. We just don't know. And so this is where essentially like the weekly cycles come into play. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to the Trading with Market Makers playlist. All the videos are there. All the whole strategies are for you for free. So you could see what I'm talking about. But essentially we don't know, how long this level is going to be held for. So the only thing that we have to go off of, being that it's just the first day of the week, essentially is a high and low of Sunday, Monday, which is here and here. So depending on what happens coming into the Asian session in London, it could basically allow us to give us a clue as to what kind of a cycle we're going to have for the week and what we can expect for price action to happen. Okay, so we have to wait for this to see how it develops coming into the London session. Regardless, because of where we're at in the count of levels and coming off of a peak formation high, I'm more biased towards a sell than I am a buy. So again, on this one, we're just gonna have to wait, and we're gonna try to see if we can do this keep an eye on these particular pairs the whole week, and try to give you updates so you guys can see kind of the involvement of this week. All right, let's take a look at the next pair here, which is Euro USD. And Euro USD, you could see we just came off of a peak formation high right here, and then this whole thing is essentially level 1. We had a crossover of the 13 and 50, but you can see we basically consolidated the entire week. So this is an accumulation cycle for this week that we just had. All right, so an accumulation cycle basically just means that we accumulated contracts and we moved sideways the whole week, as you can see from the high to the low, back up, back and forth. Because of this accumulation here, this could have a potential for a reset to go higher, but this 122 level here is very interesting level, because if we go back, let's say up to the 12-hour time frame, you could see where we have to go all the way back to like 2018 before we were anywhere close near this level. So because of that, you can see where we are now. Because of that, I believe that this level should hold for us. So if that's the case, then this would be basically what we like to call an unconfirmed reset, which is basically where you think a reset is going to happen, but it never actually manages to cross or break above the structure of the peak formation high here. If this does break above it, obviously this becomes reset, this becomes peak formation low, and we start basically counting levels again back up and go higher. If this were to go higher, though, you could see where it would go higher. We'd have to go all the way back to look at price action from like 2018 to give us any clue as to how high we could go here. And you can see this is a 12-hour chart, but you can see basically it was range bounding between 122 and essentially 125. So that's a huge range. It's about 270 pip range back and forth. And it was in that range since January all the way through April, and that was back in 2018. So that's the last time that we have any kind of price action, here. Before that, we'd have to go all the way back to like 2014. Okay. So now that we know kind of like the higher time frame aspect of what's going on here, what does that mean for us? Well, I mean, essentially, all we're waiting for is to see how this develops during this week. Does this high basically hold? Does this high hold? If it does hold, this basically is a multi-day M formation, right? If we look at, let's say, the TDI, for example, you could see that if we're looking at that in the sense of this could be a multi-day M, where the first leg is here, the second leg is the beginning of this week, you could see that there is divergence on the TDI. As you can see, this is the high of the first leg here, and then the second leg, potentially, if this is the second leg here, you can see it's way lower than that. So we do have divergence on the TDI, which is a good sign for us that this level should hold, but only time will tell, obviously. So until price breaks above this, I'm going to be a seller. Okay, so I'll be looking for sell setups on this. If there's no sell setups that appear, then obviously there's no trade for me to take. Biggest takeaway that you guys need to understand when taking trades is, like, if you're expecting a certain setup or a certain bias and you don't get that kind of setup, then obviously you were wrong and you shouldn't take a trade, because now the analysis that you did was just not correct. So you need to reanalyze essentially what you were doing. So very important in that aspect, that when you guys look at that and when you guys do some analysis and projections on what potentially the setups could be, don't get emotionally involved and start taking trades when it goes completely against everything that you were just talking to yourself about in the analysis part. Okay, so with that being said, potentially what I'm trying to get to is I'm really trying to get to this 800, where you can see where there's structure from 2 weeks ago here. That would be an ideal scenario. And if we look to get us down here is about 220 pips from the top of this peak formation. And you can see Euro USD's average ADR is about 68 pips. So 3 times that ADR is about 219 or so. So that kind of matches up with going back down to the 800 EMA. So you got some pre-analysis, consensus and type of confirmations here that you could potentially get a move down. Again, we need to see what happens here. Okay, we need to get actual setups to help us get into these trades. But good overall kind of consensus coming here, as long as this level, this peak formation here is not broken. That is going to be the key major point there. Pound USD today, we had a really nice multi-session type 1 setup. You can see here with first leg here, second leg being right here, and then boom, we went all the way back down again. So this was a really good setup during the US session. You can see on the TDI as well, we went all the way up, and then by the time the second leg came, we actually had divergence as well on there also. So this is kind of very similar to what we were seeing on Euro USD, where we're coming off of a peak formation high. We're at level 1 here. You can see basically all of the EMAs are just moving straight through price. Okay, straight through price. Last week we had an accumulation cycle here. You can see on that. Right now, what I like to see for us to get through all this is for price to really break past this 800 EMA on the 1 hour time frame. Now, my bias, because of where we are, is to be a seller, just like on Euro USD. That's my bias. So on the 15-minute chart, you can kind of see where the EMAs are kind of now above price, which is kind of cool. We can actually try to see if we can use those as a potential confirmation for a trade setup during London session or something of that nature, where we could get maybe a type 2 or something like that that bounces off one of these EMAs, either the 800 or the 50. That would be pretty cool to see that, and that would give us a nice little confirmation here. Also, if we can get price on the TDI to actually come up to the 50 here and maybe bounce off the 50, that'll also be a nice confluence confirmation as well to use also. Again, it just depends on what this looks like at the beginning of the London session. That'll, by the time this fills out, you should have a better idea as to what to expect. But again, same thing. The 135 level is huge on the higher time frame of this. You could see if you go up to like a 12-hour time frame, you could see going all the way back to December of 2019. We've been hitting that level. We hit it again on August, and then just recently here, we tested it again last week or the week before actually. So that level is huge. So for me to be a buyer, I would want for price action to break past this 135. If price action breaks past this 135, I can be a buyer because I have nothing but open space. As you can see, if we look back to the left, the only structure that we have to go off of is basically structure from February, January of 2018. Very similar essentially to what Euro USD looked like, where we have to go back all the way back to January of 2018. So you can see we have all of this open space here for price action. If price breaks, we have all of this open space to play with. So the movement to go higher once it breaks 135 is a huge potential, and we can go as high as you can see here, the 144 mark, which is what it went up to back in 2018. So the potential's there for a huge move on the pound dollar to go up, but the first thing that has to happen is we have to break the 135. If we're not breaking the 135, there's no way we can get up there. So until that happens, my bias would be to continue to sell or look for sell setups. Okay. Once we break the 135, then now I'm interested in being a buyer. But for right now, as long as this peak formation is holding, I'm looking to be a seller. So that's what I'm looking for, is to sell. So I hope that this video has helped you in understanding these three particular pairs. If you need any more help, we have a new mentoring class 2021. It's happening in January 11th. So we're only taking 10 students at a time moving forward. We're not going past that. So guys, thank you so much for the support. Thank you for allowing us to reach 10K. We look forward to reaching a lot more of you guys during 2021. And again, if you guys need any more help, all the links are in the description to sign up for the next mentoring class. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of your week.